Hello and welcome to Connected, episode 525. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Mr. Ricky Benchman himself, none other than Michael Hurley. Hey, Mike.
Hi, John. Thank you for joining us, OTJ. I would like to say this episode is brought to you by Squarespace and Fanta, and it is my pleasure as Ricky Benchman to introduce Mr. Federico Vitici. Hello, Federico.
Hello. Hi.
I feel like I'm
here.
inside of App Stories right now.
Or, I don't know, John is unconnected.
It could be either or. We'll see how the show goes.
Or, Mike, or you're joining an episode of Unwind, which is also a vibe.
Sure,
You know?
but you've left out the show that I really want to be on.
Oh, you want to be on NPC?
My favorite podcast.
Well, there's got to be Brandon on it, though.
Yeah,
So-
I know. Brandon's cooler than me. I get it. All right. I get it. Everybody knows it. We can all see it. All right.
I wouldn't say cooler, but
No,
he's
he is.
definitely taller than
No,
you.
he's cooler.
So,
No, he's cooler.
He's definitely taller.
It's fine. We can all admit it. He's cooler than all of us.
Yeah, well, he's certainly
Right?
cooler than me, that's for sure.
Probably not me.
No,
but
he's cool.
everybody-
Federico, I love you. He's cooler than you.
Nah.
Yeah, he
I
is.
don't think
Federico,
Yeah.
you've lost your cool edge.
Yeah. No,
You
no.
really have.
Federico's still cool. Right?
What?
Federico, you are cool.
You take that back immediately, John.
I take it back.
You could bring this to the show. Take this to NPC.
I will not stand for this energy at the beginning of this episode.
You know what it is, Federico? I'm just upset because I was promised Rickies and I didn't get them, and I
That's
feel
true.
like there's been collusion. There's been collusion. Somebody has plotted against me.
That is really true.
Collusion with what exactly?
I don't know.
Who
Just
colluded? You think I colluded
robbing me.
with Tim
You
Cook?
and Mike. You and Mike. Maybe Steven too.
Maybe we
Maybe
asked
Steven.
John Turnus when we saw him a few months ago to do it this way.
There it
it's
is.
We
been-
are personal acquaintances of future Apple CEO John Turnus.
He did
We
say
can
to you,
that.
Wow.
I know you. He did say
He
that.
did say that. He did say that.
He didn't
So
say
keep
that to me, which is good for two reasons.
No,
Because
you
one,
Mm.
maybe he doesn't know me and the things that I say about him. Or he does and decided he didn't want to bring that energy.
Now you
He
keep
didn't
that in
want any
mind. You
part
keep
of it.
that in mind when you say that I'm not cool anymore. The future CEO of
Okay.
Apple said, "I know you."
Okay.
He probably also said, "You're the cool one, aren't you?"
Well, I would just like to state for the record, if we're talking about coolness, I, in this year, have met the current and potential future CEO of Apple. So, I mean, that's
Very
pretty
nice.
cool.
You got that going for you.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
You met a 65-year-old man. in New
He was a
York.
nice guy. Tim Cook's a nice guy, and he. We should do some follow up. Follow up number one, which is Stephen has renamed our group chat to roommates in honor of Tim Cook.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
and
had no idea what that was all about when
it
I
was
first
very
saw
funny
it.
to
'Cause
see, like, what is going on? I don't know what's going on.
I was behind in my reading, and I had no idea what that was all about.
Very confusing for OTJ for obvious reasons. But we do have some other follow up. iOS 8.18.8. iOS 8.
Eight.
Oh, baby. iOS 8.1. Now that would be fun. iOS 18.1 is now available, which brings with it the first round of Apple Intelligence features. John, I know that you wrote about that, and Lillian wrote about it at Mac Stories. We've been talking about this for a while. They're out now. A funny thing, I was kind of talking with my wife about the Apple Intelligence stuff. Just kind of, I'm sure we all do this. We all talk to our partners because we care about this stuff so much. And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm interested in seeing what this stuff is about, right? But I ended up urging her to just wait for 18.2 because I just don't think it's worth for her like changing her language settings because I
Right.
actually recommend this to most people. Like if you're not in the US, I think you would be fine to wait for 18.2 if your language is going to be added because I really feel like 18.2 is the better overall package if you're interested in this stuff. But I did do that. I did do the language changing thing, and realistically, it didn't really affect me at all, especially when at one point in the beta process, they made it that you didn't need to have your language, like your language for text, the keyboard, like your keyboard language, sorry, as a US English. So I could have my phone language as American English. It's very confusing. My region could stay UK. My phone language had to be US English, but my keyboard could be UK English. It's like, I don't wish that on anyone, having to work out how to set that up.
Yeah, I wish I were in the meeting where they decided how to split up all these features, because I can see why they did it the way they did. On the other hand, and I think it's because 18.0 felt pretty light, and 18.1, if those things had been in 18, it would have felt like more like a normal update, I think.
Yeah.
Right. But they were still so far off of having the image stuff ready that I guess they decided to drop some stuff in between.
I feel like as well, because I was just, as you were talking, I was thinking like, oh, what would have been the harm in just waiting and just doing it all in December, right? Like if you're promoting it in September and it's not coming out in October, why not wait for December, you know? But then I was thinking, I do still think that Genmoji is going to be popular, especially with the way that Apple have implemented it in the keyboard. So I think that there is something to be said about like staging it a little bit, like not having that be in the first Apple Intelligence release, maybe.
Yeah, well, they needed more time to test out the image stuff too. I mean, we'll talk about that, but
I want to see if you two have some details on this for me, where Apple have said that the Apple Intelligence is coming to the EU in April. Like this is in the basically the footer terms and conditions secret legal notes at the bottom of a newsroom post. Yeah. Do you know what, like, this seems weird that they would announce it this way. It also seems weird that there has not at least been a public acknowledgement from anyone, or the EU haven't said, like, it seems like this couldn't launch in the EU. So how are they doing it?
I think that there are ongoing conversations between the EU and Apple. So I think that my guess is that when they say April, they've struck a deal. They just, no one's going to talk about it being a deal though.
Yeah, I mean, but it is what it is, right? They've said they were having conversations with regulators in Europe, and they seem confident that by April they will be able to release Apple Intelligence in the EU. I do think it's a little strange that you find out, about this via a footnote, or apparently, if you want to know everything about, like, if you want to have all of the EU asterisks in Apple's press releases, you just gotta sign up for the Irish newsroom. So the Irish Apple newsroom is my new best friend, because apparently if you're in Ireland, you get all the fancy details about the European Union that you don't get on the other newsrooms. So go Irish newsroom, I guess. But yeah, they have most certainly, struck a deal with the EU. And so realistically, I think we're looking at iOS 18.3 or 18.4 coming out in April, and that's going to be it. So
yeah, the language is a little bit hedged too, I think. If I remember right, it said something to the effect that most of the features will be coming to the EU or something along those lines.
Actually, it's just weird.
That's interesting.
It's just weird because, like, at first it was like, oh, but the data rules to the DMA, like, it's not going to work, like, because of the way it's written. So, like, who's changed something, or was that misunderstood from the beginning, right? Like, it's a confusing thing to me, at least, or maybe people just got carried away.
Yeah, the way I look at it, it feels like to me that Apple has had ongoing, continual conversations with the regulators in Europe ever since the very beginning. And the last thing you want to do is like haul that out into the public and make somebody look bad when you're having sensitive negotiations. So Apple has gotten comfortable enough with what they're hearing from the EU to be able to at least say that this stuff is coming in the spring. But my guess is like the details have not been totally worked out, which is why there's still time to go and why it's hedged a little bit.
I would go one step further, and I will say that the deal that they have cut with the EU is that by the time Apple Intelligence launches in Europe, it's going to support multiple AI sources in addition to ChatGPT.
All right, so here's one I'm going to read to you from the actual footnote that was in the Irish newsletter. This April, Apple Intelligence features will start to roll out to iPhone and iPad users in the EU. This will include many of the core features of Apple Intelligence, including writing tools, Genmoji, a redesigned Siri with richer language understanding, ChatGPT integration, and more. My bet on this is that they will not have support for personal context, because that was the issue, right? It was like using somebody's data
Yeah.
And that's what personal context does. Who knows? But here are a couple of potential things, right? It's like that's when Gemini's coming on board, or they're basically cutting it off there because these are just like these features are just they're like the generative AI stuff that already exists. But the idea of using somebody's data for an AI system, like I think if memory serves, that was what people were suggesting was the reason that they might struggle.
Yeah, if I remember right too, when the press release talked about the visual thing where you press the camera control and you can point it at something, that there was some language in there about later there will be third-party tools available, and that to me, I think that means other AI tools, not like third-party developers. I think it means other services that are available, AI type services. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more.
I mean,
AI
that would make sense
because
that visual intelligence thing, like I don't understand what I'm supposed to do with it. Like,
yeah,
it's really weird. It's
told really me I had a cozy coffee mug on my desk.
It sure did. It's an odd feature that where it's like that feels like something like we know how that should act because we've seen products attempt to do this, or like products say they can do this, but like at least visual intelligence right now, I don't really understand what's doing. Anyway, let's move on from this. We're gonna come back to it. We're gonna have an AI sandwich for today's episode. We're gonna talk about it at the end.
Okay, my favorite.
Everyone's favorite, tasty, delectable treat. But I actually want to talk about something which is just genuinely heartwarming and was a really interesting story, which was, John, can you talk about your experience with the AirPods Pro 2 hearing features?
Oh, yeah. So I figured, this is a new feature that I've read about a lot. And having read about it, even, there's a great story on The Verge by Chris Welsh about it. And Chris talked about how he was a little hesitant, how it was kind of stressful taking it. And so I was just very curious about what the process was like, because going into it, I didn't really know what to expect. And I know just because of my age and my past, I have some hearing loss, and my wife certainly reminds me of it frequently. And so I thought, well,
can we talk about that for a second?
Sure. Poor Jennifer.
How? Like
that I don't listen to her.
Yeah.
I tune her out, or I can't hear her. So yeah, or the TV's too loud.
Are you sure you're not using this physical limitation as an excuse?
Well, I guess I was glad to find out that I had a little hearing loss, because otherwise...
So now you're certified.
John, as your legal counsel, I recommend you plead the fifth on this one.
Absolutely. But yeah, everything's for the content, right? So I decided it's time to take this hearing test.
Wow, that is some dedication.
Everything's this is like me and Federico doing eye tests in our living rooms, right? Lenses. It's not too.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, I'm not trying to be cynical, but I thought it would make for a good story, depending on how it turned out. So
were you at any point being like, boy, I really hope I do have some hearing loss so that I can get an article out of this?
Federico, my concern was that it would tell me that my hearing loss was so bad that I needed to go see a doctor. That's what I didn't want to have to happen. And fortunately, it did not. I did find out that I have mild hearing loss in one of my two ears, in my left ear. So not really a particularly big deal, but what was neat was, well, there are a couple of things about this. First of all, the process of doing the hearing test is super, super well done. You can tell that a lot of thought went into it. The design is really good. It kind of puts if you're anxious about it all, it kind of puts your nerves at ease, because I felt like by the time I was actually taking the test that I was ready for it in a way. And it was, just a lot of intro screens. I was able to listen to a tone before I actually took the test, so I knew what I was listening for, which was kind of nice. And then I went through it, and it steps you through first checking your surroundings to make sure that your room that you're in is quiet enough. And mine was. And then it checks whether your AirPods are in your ears with a good seal, because it needs that. And then you start taking the test one ear at a time. And the first time I did it, it failed because I was sitting at my kitchen table and a truck went by, and it was enough noise, even though it wasn't super loud, that I had to redo it. So I retreated to my bedroom, which is a little further away from the street and quieter. And I was able to get through the test, and it showed me that I had the hearing loss. And then once you do that and you set up the hearing assistance, the hearing aid part of it, all it really is tapping a button, because it's, boosting some of the signals in whatever range of frequencies you're having difficulty with. And I thought, well, here I am, I'm working at home by myself. I'm not going to really be able to test this until Jennifer gets home and I have somebody to talk to. And I stood up and walked across the floor, and I was like, wow. I was immediately floored by the fact that I could hear my footsteps across the floor much more clearly than I did before I took the test. And then I was making lunch, and I could hear, the rustle of the packaging as I pulled food out of the refrigerator. And then I went to my office and started typing, and I could hear the keys like I hadn't heard them before. It was all really kind of, it was really surprising. And it just does it does what you would expect it does. It pulls out those frequencies that you have trouble with, makes everything more defined. I kind of finished up my story by talking about how I walked down. I kind of wrote up the story right away because I wanted to have it fresh in my mind, what it was like. And then I walked down to a local coffee shop to finish up the draft. And I left my AirPods in while I was ordering a drink and while I was sitting outside. And it was noticeable being able to talk to the person who took my order, hearing people at the tables nearby, despite there being like a park right next door and a lot of kids running around and making noise. It was amazing to me. I mean, it really is kind of cool. The novelty of it has worn off pretty quickly. Like, I notice it less today than I did yesterday or 2 days ago.
That's like when you get a new pair of glasses, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's very much like that. Yeah. But it's I encourage anybody who thinks they might even potentially have some hearing loss to give it a try, because it only takes like 5 minutes, and it can really improve your hearing.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just because I love you and care for you, but I felt quite emotional reading that article. I also just think you did a good job with it, like, because you can tell in the way that you're writing it, which it was just kind of, I get the impression of how much you were taken aback by the difference.
Right. Yeah. That's why I wanted to write it right away, because it was like, I stood up and I just took a couple steps and I was like, whoa, what's going on? I mean,
I can hear the future.
I can hear my socks on the wood floor like never before.
You were like, is this what I sound like when I walk?
Yeah, it's like the glory of my socks against wood was fantastic.
It's almost like a scene from a superhero movie, right? Where like you've woken up after being bit by the radioactive spider, and now you've got like extra cool senses, I suppose.
Yeah, it is a little bit like that. I mean, and I like going forward, my hearing loss isn't so bad that I'm going to be walking around with AirPods in my ears all day. But I do feel like today I walked into town again for another reason, just to run an errand. And I was wearing my AirPods and listening to a podcast. And it's like little things like the podcast volume level is lower than it was before, which is probably good for my hearing long-term too.
Yep.
And the fact that as I was walking down the street, a lot of these things are already kind of built into AirPods with the transparency mode, where, it's lowering the traffic noises and kind of pulling out other noises a little bit more. And what I noticed was it's those sounds that you want to hear, like people talking, that are better defined and pulled out against the backdrop of what's going on the street around you. And that I'll definitely wear them for things like that, I suppose, which I tend to be anyway. Like if I'm walking around doing errands, I'm going to have my AirPods in anyway, probably. Yeah. Or if you're like in a loud restaurant maybe, or at a concert or something like that, I could definitely see doing it.
I would just state for the record, because I feel like I hear a lot of people say, right, like, and you even kind of hinted towards it, of like it being weird that you would go into a coffee shop and would speak to somebody with AirPods in. I don't think this is weird at all. I don't know why people think this is weird. Like, if I have my AirPods in and I'm talking to you, you can probably assume I can hear, like I'm not listening to something. Like,
right.
I think we need to get over this idea that like I have to take one earbud out to be able to speak to you. Like, this should be contextual, right? I'm talking to you because I'm talking to you. If I say, oh, wait, sorry, what? I can't hear you. Then, you know what I mean? Then I'm listening to something. I'm not sure that I fully understand that why this is like a social, like a bad social cue. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. But I think it happens to be for some people. And I think it'll take a while to kind of become normalized, really. But
then I must be upsetting people all the time.
well, it had become a habit for me where I would, like, when I would walk down to the shop to get a coffee, I just naturally would pull my AirPods out as I approached the door and drop them in the case and order my coffee, then put them back in as I go find a seat, but even when I'm by myself, but I didn't. And it actually was better because it's a pretty loud place. And the woman behind the counter was pretty quiet spoken. So it did help.
Very cool. Do you think this is actually going to change your AirPods usage? Like, do you imagine now that you would so you mentioned a restaurant. Let's say you and Jennifer are going to dinner and you're in a loud restaurant. Would you be more likely to put your AirPods in so you could hear it better?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure because I haven't been in that situation yet. But I will say that, like, last night she came home from work and I was making dinner and I was making noise in the kitchen and she was like on the couch facing away from me and she was talking to me and I happened to have my AirPods in because I was listening to a podcast when she got home. I paused it when she got home, and as she was speaking to me from the couch, I could hear her better. So I definitely, would leave them in a situation like that more likely than not. And I think in the future, going to into town to run errands and things, leave them in when I go to the pharmacy to pick something up or talk to somebody at a restaurant or a shop or whatever it happens to be. I can definitely see it in those circumstances. I haven't really thought. Well, I'll have to see. I mean, jury's still out whether I would do it if we were out to dinner together or something.
Federico, do you think it's rude?
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty normal by now. I mean, it's been 8 years since AirPods, and yeah, I don't care about it anymore. And I don't know. Anecdotally speaking, I think people have gotten used to the idea of the other person can hear you even if you're wearing AirPods.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I think we are past this. Yeah.
I look forward to the follow-up.
Yeah, I'll definitely let you know. I think it's a generational thing. I think this is a generational thing to think about. AirPods to a degree, but we'll see. We'll see how people react.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just getting started or managing a growing brand, you can stand out with a beautiful website, engage directly with your audience, and sell anything. Products, services, even the content that you create, because Squarespace has everything you need all in one place and all on your terms. It's so easy to get started with building a website on Squarespace. This is one of the reasons that I have been using them for 15 years now, because they have such incredible tools with their templates, their layout options that make it really easy for you to express whatever it is you are looking to express online. And they have gone even further with a new system they're calling Design Intelligence. It combines 2 decades of industry-leading design expertise with cutting-edge technology to help you unlock your strongest creative potential. Design Intelligence empowers anyone to build a beautiful, more personalized website tailored to your unique needs and craft a bespoke digital identity that you can use across your entire online presence. This is all about making it easier than ever to get started with what you need for the website that you're trying to build. Like if you're wanting to build a website for your restaurant, they're going to make it even easier to show you these are the kinds of things you're going to want on that type of website. This is the design expertise that Squarespace have make it easy for them to show you this. They also have other tools like Squarespace Payments. This is the easiest way to manage your payments all in one place. Onboarding is fast and simple. You can get started in a few clicks and start receiving payments right away. Plus, give your customers more ways to pay by choosing from popular payment methods like Klarna, ACH, Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay, depending on where you're located. And then once you get your website up and running, maybe you want to know if anybody is actually coming to it to look at it. Well, you can keep track of the stats that matter with Squarespace's analytics. You can measure your end-to-end online performance with powerful website and seller analytics, get insights on top traffic sources, understand how your reach is growing, track sales metrics if you're selling products on your Squarespace site, and learn where to focus your new engagement. It's all the data that you need to scale your brand or business, fully integrated and clearly displayed. Head to squarespace.com and sign up for a free trial when you're ready to launch, because you can go in and build your entire website. You can build the entire thing, see how Squarespace works for you. You can see how great their tools are. Then when you're ready to launch your site to the world, go to squarespace.com/connected and save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That is squarespace.com/connected when you decide to sign up, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for the show. Our thanks to Squarespace for their support of this show and all of Relay. So it has been New Mac Week. We were wondering how this was going to go down, and basically it went down thusly. There have been press releases and videos Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week showing off a variety of different Macs. They were all these videos were kind of emceed by John Turnus. John Turnus really playing the Tim Cook role in these presentations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he sets up the thing, sends it away to people, comes back to him, goes to someone else, comes back to him to wrap up. Turnus is fantastic. Like I know I love him. But part of
really?
that,
You
yeah,
do?
I'm a big fan. But genuinely though, like I have a lot of respect for Tim Cook. John Turnus is better at this kind of stuff, I think. I think he has more of the personality.
He's got more energy.
He's closer to Federighi, right? No, he's not that good, but like he's closer to Federighi. Like he's funny. Like, and he can do funny things, right? Like the Mac Mini when he leans down, right? It's very memeable. Yeah. When he opens the Mac and it does like the His Master's Voice thing, right?
He can do funny faces. Yeah.
And it's like I think he's good at that. But overall, like just kind of top level, this is an interesting but like weird way to do this, where they basically had a keynote and they just cut it into 3 pieces.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why they didn't just do this, but maybe they wanted to try this out. And I would say it's been pretty successful, right? Like they got to show off Apple Intelligence 3 separate times, right? Like I think that is definitely part of the reason. And they showed some cool features, stuff we can't use, right? Like that I would like to have. Like there's that one demo where she's like, is Allegra Tepper, who is going to be, I think we're going to see her a lot. I mean, they used her 3 times this week, right? Like,
yeah.
And Tim Millay as well, who I love that they always reference as Tim Millay. Everybody else gets a first name, but you can't say, and here's Tim, right?
Right. Oh, that's true.
So they always go, and here's Tim Millay, who's friend of Upgrade. We've had Tim on the show a bunch of times. He's a great guy. But like that is a very funny, like I noticed it. Like everybody else is like, here's Allegra, it's like, oh, back to John. It's like, and here's Tim Millay. But like it's interesting to see these, like they're building new figures kind of thing, right? Like these are the people responsible for this thing. And like Allegra was in all of them, and she did a great job. So I think we're going to see her more and more. But like I think that's part of why they did this. Maybe was like we can show off these features. But yeah, the drivers, the passport thing on the website, like where they're filling in the travel information, being able to just say like, well, can you put my passport number in here? That's cool. I would love to use that. I have no idea when I'm going to be able to get to do things like that.
Also, like I was thinking about that. The idea of Siri filling information in a web form.
Yeah.
I don't think that was shown off at WWDC.
No.
Because if that's like, there has to be a new shortcuts intent. Like, right? I mean, it's not something that...
Well, could it be combined with on-screen awareness? Like, could maybe on-screen awareness take action on the screen stuff?
It's either like a new Siri combined with Safari thing, or it's a new type of shortcuts integration where a shortcut action can modify the contents of a web page. But maybe it's just like a Safari exclusive thing.
Could be. But here's the question. Where did that come from? Like, I'm not trying to nitpick this, but it's like interesting. Like, where in macOS, iOS would I save my passport information? Like, where was that?
You can't, because the passwords app doesn't support things like driver's license numbers.
Sure. No, but it could also be something that... But the idea is that it could be something that you have in Notes or that you have in Photos.
Yeah. Or
and
one
Apple
password.
Intelligence... Yeah.
Right.
And in theory, Apple Intelligence with its semantic index knows, oh, this item is a passport. Mm-hmm. And it's the person's passport because it matches their face, all these signals.
And so possibly, right? But it's just interesting. Yeah. Like, but where? Like, this has been the question the whole time, right? Like, this is interesting, but how, right? And I'd like to see more practical use cases, because that is one which would be great, right? For me, like that, I like put my address in here. Like that's better than autofill, right? Like, or just fill out this form for me. Like, and it's just my name, my address, my billing address, my shipping address, my credit card, my phone number, right? Like, it should be able to do all of that, right? And that would be great if you could just say, like, fill this out. Mentioning about we haven't seen this before, what I find interesting is, did you see what Anthropic are doing? Like, they showed off a demo of, like, filling in a form. And it's like, maybe it's like, oh, okay, we think, like, we know we can do stuff like that. Maybe we should show it now. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about the products. I want to rank these by the ones that I find the most interesting. So we'll start with the Mac Mini. This is the thing, though, right? Like the other stuff is like much of what we expected. Like is easy to kind of expect. But the Mac Mini is like, are they actually going to do this? They did it. It's a 5x5 inch cube, like square. Sorry, that's kind of like the dimensions of it looking down. Still has a bunch of I/O, Ethernet, HDMI, 3 Thunderbolts on the back, 2 USB-C on the front, headphone jack, power button on the bottom. We'll come back to that. I'm just going to run through some specs, right? First carbon neutral Mac, 85% less aluminium is part of the ways they did this. Features M4 or M4 Pro, essentially faster and more in all cases. And the M4 Pro has the, quote, world's fastest CPU core. The M4 Pro is 75% faster memory bandwidth than, I guess, M3 or M2 Pro or whatever. Good for AI. Better ray tracing, faster neural engine. M4 Pro has Thunderbolt 5. The M4 has Thunderbolt 4. 16 gigabytes of memory is standard, still starting at $599. I'm going to say, does anybody have anything they want to talk about? But I will just say, Federico, do you want to talk about Thunderbolt 5?
I don't know. It's really exciting. There are basically no accessories at this point.
Right.
I believe like a couple of companies announced literally a couple of cables and a couple of external SSDs.
Right.
I'm sure now that Apple is doing this, I'm sure that CES will be an exciting time for Thunderbolt peripherals, like Thunderbolt 5 peripherals. I think we will see how would you say, a deluge of of Thunderbolt 5 accessories. Yeah.
I mean, you track this stuff more than me. Is it weird for a computer company to support this before there's the accessories? Like, I kind of feel like usually it's like, hey, we're making this thing.
Not really, because it's a bit of a situation, like it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem, because if you don't have the computers with support for the standard, why would you even make the accessories, right?
Yeah.
So it has to come. Like, a couple of things needed to happen. Apple needed to add support for Thunderbolt 5 to their computers. And on the Windows side, Intel or Qualcomm, whoever is in charge now, AMD, like they need to introduce their desktop and laptop controllers for Thunderbolt 5 in their CPUs. So that's most likely going to be the next step in Windows Land. In Windows Land, that's also going to open the door for things like Thunderbolt 5 eGPUs, for example, and that will be a really interesting comparison between USB 4 version 2 and Thunderbolt 5. But everybody was basically waiting for Apple to come up with their own, with their computers and with their Thunderbolt 5 passive cable, which is also something that we have now. We don't have an active cable, meaning we are limited right now to a 1 meter Thunderbolt 5 cable. I am looking forward to the Thunderbolt 5 3 meter active cable that's most likely going to show up at some point within the next year.
What does that mean?
Why stop at 3 meters, Federico? You should keep going. Go.
Don't limit yourself.
Well, Thunderbolt is really hard to do at long distances. It's like any love relationship. It's really hard to do long distance with Thunderbolt.
It is.
Yeah. It means, Mike, that basically I'm gonna try my I don't know the proper words personally to describe this, but basically an active cable is actively sending an electric signal throughout the entire cable to make sure that there's no data loss in the 3 meters of the cable.
Yeah, I think that there's an amplifier in it essentially to sustain over longer distances.
Okay. Yeah. Whereas this passive cable is just 1 meter, so it's short. There's no data loss. There's no data degradation as it moves through the cable because it's short.
John, what are your feelings about the Mac Mini?
Oh, I love the Mac Mini. I mean, if this computer had been out at the time I bought my Mac Studio, I would have bought a high-end Mac Mini instead, because that's effectively what my M1 Mac Studio is, because I've got a 4 terabyte SSD in it and 64 gigs of memory. And that is essentially the high end of the Mini. The Mini actually can go up to 8 terabytes of storage, but it caps out at 64 gigabytes of memory. And that's plenty fine for me. I mean, that's great for, even the most taxing things I do, which tend to be like audio editing and a little video editing here and there. So I'd be really happy with this little thing. And I think what we're seeing is something that I'm sure is near and dear to Federico's heart, which is we're seeing really the most modular of Macs ever. I mean, you could easily take this thing, put it in a little case, and carry it on out to your coffee shop with, with a portable display and a keyboard and trackpad. It's really going to fit into, I think, a lot more contexts than even the small Mini did before.
Yeah, I mean, it's if I were a Mac user, I would be totally over this. Like this is the computer I would buy.
Yeah.
The super
This
modular,
will be my next one for sure.
Yeah, super modular Mac Mini that is so like basically a tall Apple TV. I mean, it's lovely. Yeah.
You mentioned the Mac Studio though, right? And
yeah,
I think the thing about this machine, it starts at $599. You add anything to that base configuration, and you're getting up towards Mac Studio. Like the configuration that I want. Now, all I'm doing is increasing the RAM and the storage.
Mm-hmm.
It's £2,399.
Yeah,
I priced one out. Right? I said M4 Pro, right? So I've got M4 Pro, right? So I've gone up from the base. So I want an M4 Pro.
Yeah.
I want a little bit more RAM. I want a little bit more storage than what that starting base is, and we're up to 2,400. Like it's a big old jump. But this computer is like, I mean, I've been waiting on this for a while. I'm using an M1 Max because I didn't know what I was buying. I have an M1 Max MacBook Pro that I use for recording, editing, all of my production work. It stays here at the studio, and then my daily computer is a MacBook Air, right? And that comes backwards and forwards for me. Like, that's my main machine. And I've been wanting to get a Mac Studio for a while and was deciding I would wait until they upgraded the Mac Studio. And now it's like, this will be my next computer. I'm just not sure when I'm going to buy it. And I think I was just a little bit surprised at that price jump, right? Like, I thought this was going to be maximum $19.99 to get what I wanted. It is much more money than I would have expected, considering where it starts and considering basically that really then it's a couple of £100 more to get a Mac Studio with basically the same specs. And I know that when I have to get the new Mac Studio, I know it will obviously be more expensive, but like it still is just a surprise to me anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely get into over $4,000 for a Mac Mini now, which is really, really something. I mean, that's wild. But by the same token, you can spec this out to be comparable to a Mac Studio, at least a certain range of the Mac Studio that's out there today. Now, of course, Apple's going to rev the Mac Studio, and it's going to leap forward, I suppose. I do wonder, though, a little bit like, how does the top end of the Mac Mini relate to the Mac Studio, which then relates to the Mac Pro? And is there going to be overlap? Is there really room for all three of those things, from the very high end Mini?
Got to get rid of the Mac Pro, right?
You would think that that's where this is going, because I would think that now that the Mac Mini is encroaching on the bottom end of the Mac Studio, you'd push the Studio up to where the Pro is now, essentially.
Well, I mean, they are like power-wise, they're at the same level, right?
Yeah. Now, but then you lose expansion, though. That's the thing. You lose the expansion if you get rid of the Pro. That's the biggest thing.
Can anyone tell me what you can actually expand in a Mac Pro?
I don't know.
You just put SSDs inside? Like,
you have to be a pro. I'm not
anymore.
You have to be a pro, Mike. We're not pros.
I guess
we're not pro enough.
We need Steven, But like, I feel like, I mean, I've been banging this drum for a while. That the Mac Pro is kind of just like to me, it just was kind of pointless now because they don't have the support for external GPUs and stuff like that.
The Mac Pro is the way I look at it. The Mac Pro is a very expensive statement for people who really want one, because
yeah,
for a lot of us in this industry, I'm not talking about 3D artists. I'm not talking about like academics doing DNA research on for a lot of people listening to this show, it's more of a it's the equivalent of, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to say it because I'm part of the problem in another industry. It's like the equivalent of getting really fancy headphones.
Yeah.
Because I can tell I can tell the difference.
It's for the computer file.
Who wants those crunchy mids?
It's for the computer file.
looking for the bass. Really, the open expansion inside of the Mac Pro provides good resonance for the CPU whine. I'd really like to have that. Yeah, I mean, I know at this point, like most of those pro use, like the top end pro use cases, the Mac Studio can handle them. And it is an edge case now, I'm sure, for the Mac Pro. And I wonder if the people in that bucket, if they're still best served by the Mac. Like I just don't. I'm not really sure that I can kind of get my head around it anymore. I think the Intel Mac Pro made so much more sense because it had the ability to use cards. You could there are actual cards that you could put in that thing.
Imagine that.
But this doesn't. It still has the ability to do that, but Apple don't support most of the stuff that people would want to put in there. So anyway, I don't want to talk about the Mac Pro anymore. There are other podcasts that will do this.
There is a problem in a way I think that Apple faces, though, is that the M4 is so powerful that I think people are going to start to realize they can get by with a lot less computer than they might have thought they otherwise would have needed in the past. I mean, you can certainly use an iPad Pro with an M4 in it and do Final Cut editing in it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the software holds it back compared to the Mac to a degree, but you look at somebody like Chris Lawley, he does all of his YouTube editing on an iPad, and it's totally doable.
Anyway, the Mac Mini looks sick. I think this thing is so cool. I love that they got a bunch of ports on it, which I'm happy about. Even on just the standard M4 version, they got a bunch of ports, which is great. The power button on the bottom, don't care. I don't care about this at all. I know that some people care about this. I just put my Mac to sleep every night. I used to turn my Mac off, but no, I just put my Mac to sleep. I guess if I guess what I would say is, like, if it's a big problem for you, I don't know, put it upside down. I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, would there be any harm in putting it upside down? Like, just put it upside down.
It's so little and light. It's not going to be that hard to get your finger under there and press the button if you need to do it. I mean, exactly. I'm like you. I don't turn my Mac on or off almost ever, so it's not really an issue for me. I love that it's just kind of right in between the size of the old Mac Mini and an Apple TV. It's 5 inches is nothing, and it's 2 inches tall.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I think it's amazing. Something I thought you would like, Federico, I was digging through the tech specs. The M4 chip supports displays of up to 8K 120 hertz.
Wasn't that a mistake? Like, some people debunked that last night.
Well, I mean, it's on all the pages still. So if it's been debunked, I don't understand what that would mean. Because, like,
I think I saw something on Mastodon last night.
Well, the MacBook Pro tech specs page that they published today.
Oh, maybe it was the iMac, the problem.
Maybe, but the Mac Mini, the MacBook Pro, and I found this on the iMac page yesterday. They support displays that are significantly higher powered than what Apple's currently selling, which is exciting. They do 8K 120 on the M4. The Pro will do 4K 240 as well, and it also has DisplayPort 2.1 via Thunderbolt 5.
Yeah, it was the mistake on Apple's website was on the iMac. Okay. I'm looking at a Mac Rumors article. It says updated hours after it was published. Apple updated the tech specs for the new iMac to confirm that the 10-core M4 chip configuration does not support 8K up to 120 hertz, but instead 60 hertz.
All right. Well, the M4 range does do that because it just depends on the computer, just not the iMac. Yeah. But the M4 Mac Mini will do one display of up to 5K at 60 hertz over Thunderbolt, and one display of up to 8K at 60 hertz or 4K over 240. And then if you go for the M4 Pro, you can do more and more and more. I just think that is exciting. I mean, I really want them to make a like Studio Display Pro. Right, that's what I want. I want ProMotion on a 27-inch display. You
need it for when you play Cyberpunk in February.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So MacBook Pro, that was released today. The MacBook Pro comes in M4, M4 Pro, and M4 Max options. The M4 Max, I guess, is just like a monster of a computer. I'm really, again, like all we really get is what Apple shows us. I'm very intrigued for the speed tests and stuff like that of this one and all of the benchmarking. I think it'd be interesting. The MacBook Pro now has 3 Thunderbolt ports, so it's one more than before. And that is, I think that's on the base one, I think has 3 now.
I think that's right.
Which I think was part of that Russian thing, like where those Macs are showing up in Russia. I think they had an extra Thunderbolt port. But anyway, so 3 Thunderbolt ports. They go up to Thunderbolt 5 on the Pro and the Max version. It's Thunderbolt 4 on the regular. The Cyberpunk is coming to the Mac. Can't wait. Up to 24 hours of battery life. The screen is brighter, and they offer a nano texture option on the MacBook Pro now. 12 megapixels center stage camera, 16 gigabytes of memory standard, which is the same on the Mac Mini. That's on the 14-inch. You get 24 gigabytes as standard on the 16-inch. Starting prices remain the same. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great... I've been using an M3 MacBook Pro for about a year now, and it's a fantastic computer. I mean, it's a bit chunky. It's a little heavy. I think I personally prefer an Air, and I'm kind of waiting for an M4 or M5 Air before I upgrade. But I do like the Pro. I mean, the Pro it's for the longest time now, it's been the fastest computer I've been using. But now it's the iPad Pro is actually the fastest computer I'm using.
I love my MacBook Air so much. I have an M2 MacBook Air. I love that computer. I can imagine using it for years. Like I'm not pushing the M2 for anything, which is, I love that computer. But MacBook Pro is very popular. And also I think it is of all of the machines that Apple make, I think that the MacBook Pro is the one that is most likely to see the year-over-year upgrades. Right? Like
I think that's true.
If you're building an Xcode, right? If you can get any % faster, that's better, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the one that makes the most sense. And those are the people who are most likely to upgrade on a more frequent basis than an Air or anything else, I think.
Yeah. So super cool. I don't know if there's a ton to say there. The MacBook Air also now has 16 gigabytes of RAM. Which is the same as the iMac, which is the first of the week, which is now an M4. 16 gigabytes of RAM standard, can go up to 32 gigabytes. They have new shades of colors. They're keeping the same options, but in new versions. They have a nano display texture option, 12 megapixel camera, all 4 USB-C ports on the MacBook, on the iMac now are Thunderbolt 4, and also the same starting price. This was a very healthy, good week of Mac announcements, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, these are a lot of things that people wanted for a long time. I think it's worth noting with the camera that this is a center stage camera, which these Macs didn't have before. It's still 1080p, but it's a better sensor with a wider field of view that allows center stage to work.
Good point. I didn't think about that when they were calling them center stage cameras. It just kind of washed over me. But yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's just the same resolution, different angle, which allows that software feature to work, I guess.
I was thinking today when I was looking over this and looking at our notes and looking at Apple's web pages and stuff like that, I think that right now the Mac lineup is Apple's best product lineup. Like, there are good options in basically every category that they sell. The options are clear. It's easy to know what you want when you go into it. You kind of like, do I want my computer to have a screen? Do I want it to be a laptop? Right? Like these are like very simple questions you can ask yourself. And then from there, it's, I think, very easy to understand what you're looking for. And I think that you have the luxury of making choices without huge sacrifices because all of the base models of everything are good. And like especially even better now thanks to Apple Intelligence. Like they've all got good RAM in them now. Like I think at the moment, they just have a very strong lineup of products. I think because like, you compare it to the iPhone, you compare it to the iPad, and you compare it to the Apple Watch. All of these product lineups, I think there is at least one product with pretty significant caveat. And I don't really feel that way for the Mac, except for the Mac Pro, but nobody's thinking about that. I think like, even the Mac Studio today, if you buy that Mac Studio now, that is an incredible computer, even though it's older. But like it's very powerful and has a ton of internal I/O. And if that's what you want, great, right? You're going to be able to get that. Mm-hmm. So I just think, I don't know what you guys think about that statement, but I think like overall right now, the Mac lineup is just very healthy, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy to pick because like I look at all these Macs and I know exactly what I'd get if I were in the market to buy one today. And I can't say the same as easily with other things.
You can't even say it for the iPhone. Look at the amount of questions there have been this year. Look at Federico, right? Like that should, you'd think the iPhone was the slam dunk, right? Like everybody knows exactly what iPhone they want. But this year, it seems like the main topic of conversation around the iPhone 16 line is which one shall I buy? And maybe I'm good with a different one than usual, right? Like that's potentially showing that your lineup isn't as strong and as clear. Where like for the Mac, you can do, and the iPad is to a point like this, but I think that the iPad has a lot of inconsistencies, and also where like every Mac lineup is, I think, being put to its full potential. The iPad is not, right? Like,
right.
You whatever Mac you buy, you can very easily use it to its fullest extent. But that is not the case with the iPad, right? Like this is the question that we every year, right? Federico's is like, oh, the iPad Pro is really powerful. Shame I can't do a lot with it. Like I can't push it. Is not I'll do a lot of it, but I can't push it to that level, right? Like the MacBook Pro with M4, it's the same chip, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Kind of. It's like it's. I would say it's probably still a bit more powerful than the M4 and the iPad, but it's the same family. It's the same.
It's essentially the same thing. But
essentially the same, yeah.
What you can do with it, yeah. So I just think right now, I think Apple's they're sitting pretty on this Mac lineup, and I hope that they sell a lot of them because they deserve it.
I would say they're telling a very compelling story right now with the Mac lineup and with the AirPods lineup.
Yeah,
that's what I would say.
Yeah, except for the AirPods Max, but we forget about those. They're a fashion statement now.
The AirPods Max are the Mac Pro of that lineup.
Yes, that's a great point. Although I don't know if the Mac Pro is as fashionable as the AirPods Max. But.
And also they're way more popular than the Mac Pro.
a little cheaper.
Do you think? I wonder if this is true. Saying about popular. Do you think Apple make more money each year from the AirPods Max than they do from the Mac Pro? You do?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes.
That is a horrifically wild thing to consider. Like, because you'd have to sell like 10 pairs of AirPods Max for one Mac Pro. Yeah. You know what?
They're doing
that. They're doing that. They're doing that easy. John, do you have any big picture thoughts about the Mac lineup?
No, not really. Not that beyond what we've already said. I mean, I think I'm really happy with the way this week turned out. It's I think it's a great lineup and really puts Apple in a good place going into the new year with a nice lineup that, this week was strategically, I think, for the company, a smart one because they've got an earnings call tomorrow. And so they can go in having told the world not only about their great new Macs, but also Apple Intelligence 3 times before they go talk to the analysts about it. And from a business standpoint, that's important. And I think they did a good job kind of, I think, pitching this indirectly to Wall Street.
This is a bad week to be John Voorhees or Jason Snell.
Oh, I know. I really, I dread tomorrow because I've had a busy week already. And
like 3 separate Mac announcements, then the earnings call. Boy, you two should commiserate on Friday.
We will.
Federico, do you want to talk to us about peripherals?
Well, yes, and I come with a twist.
Oh, I mean, of course you do.
Of course he did. Yeah.
Well, it's not what you think. That's what I would say.
Of course not.
So I thought, well, there's now USB-C Magic Keyboard and USB-C Magic Trackpad. Let me try those again. Lately, I've just been working with the iPad Pro in its Magic Keyboard at my desk so that I see both the iPad's own display and my external display. I use both at the same time. I keep usually something like Ivory on the iPad's display and then all the other windows. Like, for example, right now, I'm recording. I have Ivory on the iPad and I have Safari, Discord, Notion, and Messages on the external display. But I thought, well, let me try again with those USB-C peripherals. I can take advantage of a little workaround that I wrote on Mac Stories, I think it was last year, to sort of fake your way around having clamshell mode on an iPad. It's not really clamshell mode. You're basically just telling the iPad not to lock itself when you close the cover of the Magic Keyboard. It's really not clamshell mode, and it comes with a whole bunch of limitations. Like, for example, what if you have to use Face ID? The iPad thinks it's unlocked and tries to find your face, but it can't. So anyway, I thought I'm going to try fake clamshell mode again with the new peripherals. They arrived today, and much to my surprise, so I don't know if I got a faulty unit, or I don't know if it's because I have my iPad Pro running iPadOS 18.2 beta. The Magic Trackpad doesn't work. None of the multitasking gestures are recognized. Actually, none of the multi-touch gestures are recognized. I cannot even scroll with 2 fingers with this Magic Trackpad. Yes. Now, could it be that the iPadOS 18.2 beta doesn't have the necessary driver for the brand new USB-C Magic Trackpad? Most likely. I would bet that's what's happening here. I have the latest beta. This accessory just came out. This trackpad is not working, but I don't know. Maybe it's a sign that I shouldn't keep it. Maybe it's, I don't know. Because once again, I was already stretching it with my fake clamshell mode. And maybe this trackpad not working is a sign from the universe telling me, no, TG, just return these accessories and keep using your iPad with the Magic Keyboard, even when you're working at your desk. So it was nice charging them, though, with USB-C. That was cool. That's all I will say.
It's a shame, right? Like, it's a shame. I mean, I feel like when we spoke with Jason about the peripherals and we drafted what we would like to see, that was very unlikely that we would get any of the things that we wanted, but it is also just sad to have gotten nothing other than USB-C.
Very interesting that, and I don't want to start a new gate here. Interesting that people in Discord are saying that somebody else on Discord, on the Relay Discord, was having similar issues where their Mac, not even an iPad, their Mac was picking up the new Magic Trackpad as a mouse. Therefore, no multi-touch gestures were being properly recognized.
I wonder if this is there might be an update, right? Like there might be something where it's just not being recognized fully yet or something. Maybe if you're on a beta or something, it could be an issue.
But if it were a gate, could we please call it Magic Gate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, call it Magic Gate and do a little quick video, put it on YouTube, and see if you get on Good Morning America. Come on, you can you can do it. You can beat Steven.
If only I could learn from the master right now, but Sensei is not here. Unfortunately,
talking about, I was thinking about this the other day. I was using my iPad Pro and I was on my home screen and I was tapping days on the Fantastical widget to see what was going on, and every time I tapped a day, I could hear the processor in my iPad Pro. Really? I tap a day and I could hear it, like I could hear the whine just for a second. Be like,
oh wow,
really?
Yeah. Nothing else on my iPad was doing it, but
because that's a pretty loud whine.
It's pretty loud. Yeah. Every time
I don't have that problem. I wouldn't have been able to hear it, so I'd be fine.
Put your AirPods in, and you'll be hearing everything hissing at you.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to hear all this about the peripherals because that's the only thing I bought this week, and mine are coming tomorrow. I'm surprised you got them already, Federico.
Well, yeah. I mean, what can I say? UPS in Italy really works.
Yeah, I guess so.
This episode is brought to you in part by Vanta, the folks who help you automate compliance, manage risk, and continuously prove trust. And proving company trust is more important than ever, especially when it comes to your security program. Vanta helps centralize program requirements and automate evidence collection for frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, and HIPAA, and more, meaning you can save time, money, and build customer trust. And with Vanta, you get continuous visibility into the state of your controls. Join more than 8,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora who trust Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Now that's a new way to handle governance, risk, and compliance. Learn more at vanta.com/connected. That's Vanta, V-A-N-T-A, vanta.com/connected. Our thanks to Vanta for their support of this show and all of Relay. So Federico, you have had access to Image Playgrounds for a few days.
Oh boy.
I actually got access to Image Playgrounds today.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to talk about your experience over the last few days?
Yes. I will say that you just mentioned landing on Good Morning America. I would say that if I went ahead and shared on social media some of the images that I've been able to create with Image Playgrounds in this beta, I think it would be a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
In the sense that I've been able to create, and you guys have seen them.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting anything without evidence. I've been able to create some really deeply concerning images.
Yep.
By using a specific prompt that I don't want to share, but you guys can read it in the show notes. And that's been unsurprising, but still concerning.
Yeah.
Because I know that, you can trick these systems, right? If you're using just the right words. And maybe we were thinking, Apple must have built an incredibly, sandboxed, safe environment. But I can tell you, it's not. Especially in this first beta of 18.2. I've been able to create some really awful things. None of them involve nudity. So at the very least, it does seem like none of Apple's models were trained on that sort of adult content. But yeah, I've been able to create some really disturbing images otherwise, especially from a political and historical perspective. That's what I will say.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, right? Because I think it is important to state that, because the wording that you're using, I think, is correct. I mean, and it's even just one of these things of like, so in the context of disturbing political, historical things, right? That's the context that we're describing here. That these images aren't like, they're not like in and of itself bad. The problem is
they're not graphic. Is the way I would.
They're not graphic. No, they're not graphic.
The problem is, it's like this should, if you're effectively guardrailing, these are the obvious things you guardrail out.
Yeah. The thing I found most surprising was the prompt accepted something that in that context of, for example, say a location that I was requesting, and for example, requesting laughing at that specific location or smiling at that specific location or having a chuckle at a specific moment in time.
Yeah.
That was all those were instructions that I used. It should have been guardrailed, and it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
That like maybe you don't necessarily want to exclude some of these things, but that there are words that you would use around them that wouldn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, like that is one thing, but
that is one thing. And so all that set aside, like I said, I don't want to share these images. If Apple is listening, you want to get in touch, I will probably and maybe I should submit this as feedback at some point. But yeah, I think you should.
I think you should. And I think there are tools that make that very easy to do.
But all that aside, I will say that
I was just looking at the most recent one.
So I've also been having fun creating images of my friends and sharing them with my friends. And by fun, I mean cringing, really, at those images for how bad they
They're
are.
terrible.
They're terrible. They're
really.
Just today. Let's see what I created today.
There's
There's
no good imagery, right?
There's no. I asked for John as a raccoon, and sure enough, it created its own version of John.
I was playing around with this. I cannot. It will not accept John as a dog. Like,
interesting.
Well,
as a dog, won't allow you to do that.
John,
dog, no way.
John as a raccoon added an extra pair of ears.
Very big ears.
There's raccoon ears on top of the human ears. I asked for Mike as a gondolier, and you can see that is sure enough Mike wearing a gondolier hat with some gondolas, typical from Venice, Italy, in the background. Mike's expression is horrific. But at least it understood the prompt. I believe last night I asked for Steven as a swole police officer.
And he did look exactly like that. You were right.
And also as a distressed fisherman. And,
look, here's the thing. Because there's not... We can keep going into this, but I'm not going to show these in the show notes because I just think it's just not worth it. Essentially, the overall description is you can create something that kind of looks like someone. Kind of. Yeah, sometimes better than others, which is weird. You can use the same image as completely different people. Kind of looks like someone. The quality of the imagery, the actual resolution of the imagery, terrible. You zoom in at all on anything and it's a disaster. My overall feeling on this, looking at this stuff, the image playground stuff, how could you be proud of this?
Yeah.
That's what I'm coming back to. And I feel like I've been getting... People have been sending me feedback. They think I'm going too hard on this. I don't. No. This is my feelings on this. If you don't like it, then, that's it. I just don't understand how you could be proud of this output because it's not good.
Here's my take, and I have a postscriptum at the end. Right now, with this image playground, Apple is in its Will Smith eating spaghetti AI generated video. It's like they're basically mid-journey 3 years ago. So after trying this, when I see those reports that Apple feels they are at least 2 years behind, I believe those reports, and I believe they are correct because this is exactly the typical output of mid-journey from 3 years ago. At the same time, I think you can potentially save Genmoji. I think Genmoji probably because Genmoji is good enough because they've trained it on their own emoji, which are, my opinion, the best in the biz. And so Genmoji is good enough. Genmoji is fun and good enough. Image playgrounds, and I haven't tested I don't even know, is Image Wand available in Notes? I haven't.
It is, but I haven't even tested that yet either. It's kind of, it's not, I don't know. I'm not really that particularly interested in that feature. It's kind of being realistic that I'm interested in Genmoji because I actually think it's a good idea. I'm interested in image playgrounds because I think it's a disaster and it's fun to talk about. That is me essentially.
I think Magic Wand seems more like a party trick to me in a lot of ways. Yeah. I don't know why someone would actually use that. Maybe there's a use for it. Yeah, looking at these, one of my favorites is Stephen Hackett smoking a cigarette where the cigarette is floating in midair. Right? So there's just to give you an idea, and then Mike zooms in on his eyes and they're pointing in different directions.
Yeah. The eyes are so bad. Everybody's eyes really are so bad. They're like these weird swirls. It's basically it's you've seen this style of image, and the main reason you've seen this style of image is everyone was sharing them a lot a year and a half ago because people were using different tools to do this, and the image playgrounds in and of itself, whatever, right? Make me an image of a sunny day with a mountain and a bunch of trees, whatever.
Right.
The reason this is a problem is I cannot, I went into image playgrounds today and it shows me the ability to create images of my 2-year-old niece. Now, that ain't right. Come on, right? I shouldn't be doing this. I will not do that. Like, I shouldn't be able to do this at all. Like, I have photos of someone in my photo library. Like, at the moment, we're all being menaces to each other because we're good friends, right? Jason's griefing me. I'm griefing Jason. Federico's griefing me. I'm griefing him, right? But, like, you could, and this, you can make images of me, and people are gonna, like, you know, because why can't, all I need is one photo of you. I thought you would need, like, loads, but you just need one photo of someone. And you can use that, and I just
let's just say that to test this out, I downloaded from Wikipedia the photo of a past dictator and loaded it up in image playgrounds.
Federico, you're really having a time over there, man.
And it couldn't, thankfully, in this case, couldn't figure out the facial hair is what I'm gonna say.
Right, but right. You were able to make you were able.
Oh
to make,
yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. It did make a version.
Yeah.
Of that person.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
which also, I mean, by the way, do some. This is a clean show. Do some image recognition. You know, for God's sake, do some image recognition and be like, hey, we don't want to create an image.
No,
of this
but
person.
you just shouldn't be able to make images of people.
Yeah.
Right? You just shouldn't be able to do that. Like,
yeah, it's what you're able to make, and it's also the quality, because, you know, the first thing I asked Federico to do was to ask it to make a hand, and it made a hand with 6 fingers, which is just, you know, it's so cliched at this point for AI to do that, but that just shows where Apple is at with this stuff. And I'm kind of with you guys on this. I don't like it at all. I don't have it yet because I was doing my 18.1 review and didn't want to pollute my screenshot, so I didn't install it until over the weekend, and so I don't have it yet. But believe me, I've seen plenty of it, and I don't like it.
Yeah, but again, it's like, it's a shame because Gemoji is a great feature, and I think Apple have implemented it well, right? That, like, you search for an emoji, and if the emoji you're looking for isn't there, they're like, make one. And it's like, yeah, that is good. Like, that's a good idea, right? Like, here is a legitimate good idea of a thing Apple can do, and it makes sense because it shows an emoji, like, in messages and as tapbacks and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, that's great. But, like, the image playground is like, that's not very good. Like, there are thousands of free apps on the App Store that do a better job than this. Now, what are they doing with that imagery, right, is a whole different thing. But it's still, like, a thing people can do. So it's just like it's a weird feature to me. And I just struggle to get my head around it. Like, this feels like it's like a separate company. It just doesn't feel like a company with who I know have great taste, because this is it's tasteless.
It's part of what the conclusion of my review of 18.1 was all about, was, you know, shouldn't we expect more out of the biggest company in the world with the heritage of Apple, of you know, championing creators and culture, not to do this kind of stuff? I don't know. I think it's a little much.
I think that we don't know what the lines are, right? Like, and I think this is when I think everybody's finding their own lines, and it depends on their own context. Like, but I you know, between the three of us, we have very different lines, right? Like, I use the writing tools. I know you two would never, right? Like, we all have our own lines. I genuinely struggle to imagine the person who wants to create imagery of their friends and family. Like, I don't. If you want to do this, please write in. Like, tell me why. Like, and I'm not trying to say that you're wrong, right? I just saying I can't get my head around it. Like, if you have used this feature or you would like this feature, like, please go to connectedfeedback.com, write in and tell me why. I just want to understand.
Yeah, I think what Apple's going for and not doing a very good job at is maybe making this similar to the GIF button in messages, that, you know, you're going to send some kind of cute, funny thing, clip to somebody, but it's different in nature than that kind of thing, obviously. But I think that's at least how they're trying to pitch it, is, you know, and that's why it's cartoony too, right? They're trying to make it like lighthearted in some way. And that's certainly how Craig Federighi sees it when he talks about it in interviews and in videos.
But they're horrifying, though.
I agree. I agree with you. I mean, look, Federico's been tormenting me for like 5 days now.
Like, why not
get
just
you
make
back, man.
all of these Memoji, right? Like, why isn't it just Memoji? And like, that's a thing too, right? Where that superhero mum image, that was Memoji, right? It looked like Memoji. It looked like a horrifying version of Memoji. None of these images look like that.
No.
They look like weird humans.
They're like a really bad Pixar image in a way. It's like if you told somebody to make the worst possible imitation of Pixar you could, in a way.
Yeah, it's like we have Pixar at home.
Yeah.
Basically.
I'm looking at
it's
this
kind
image
of
again. The thing that is particular of why I'm mentioning that one is like that image of the superhero mum, and like all of the eyes are really large, right?
Yeah.
I have not seen big eyes like that in any imagery that like. I don't think these images are made on what is in my phone. No, there is potentially they're going to make it better, but like I haven't seen anybody produce an image that to me look like this. Maybe they're out there, right? And I just haven't seen them. But yeah,
if anything, some of the images that we've been sharing, the eyes are too small.
Yeah, that's actually part of the problem of why they look weird.
Right, the gondola one of you, Mike. I mean, you have these beady little eyes that are too close together.
Like they should be more cartoonish, right? Like they're trying to make me look like a person, like an actual person, and I think that's part of the problem. I don't know. I don't want to keep being mad about this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah, we're just gonna, I think we will, within the next few months, when all of this is past, like, people will just start ignoring this stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like,
it'll have its moment.
It'll have its moment. You know, we're gonna have some fun. You know, at some point they're gonna get canceled because some controversy, like the one that I'm not gonna share, is gonna pop up because like this system is not perfect, and we'll just move on. Because honestly, this is like the least exciting feature of Apple Intelligence, the most boring one, and the one that's been honestly the one with the worst, most useless results. So like, cool. Craig Federighi really likes to make pictures of his dog. I think within the next 3 months, the rest of the world won't care anymore. So good luck. You know?
Yeah. I don't know.
That photo.
I made one here. I'm going to put it in the show notes. Like, it's just something I just made of me wearing a beanie hat in a rainforest. Like,
sure.
This is everything that's right. It's like it's not a beanie.
Why do a lot of these images put on people the weird Mr. Beast smile?
Yeah. And like, why is like my skin like speckled like that? And like, what is going on with the beard texture?
You're blushing, man, because in the rainforest.
Yeah, it does a thing. It does it with a lot where it has like really rosy cheeks. I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
Very strange. Very, very strange. But that's where we are for now. Again, I'll just say it again. I love Gemoji as an idea. I'm looking forward to playing around with it a little bit more. I think like, yeah, let me make like weird little emojis. And it's like, my expectation is like, that feels like it's done in the right way, right? Like Apple have, because they look like Apple's emoji. So the training data is Apple's emoji, right? So Apple made their own training data. They trained an LLM on their own data. And then I'm able to make things that look like emoji and send them to my friends. Like, that's like that. Yes, you did it. Whoever came up with that idea had a great idea. And I really like that feature. John, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John.
It's been a real mixed bag today. Great Macs, terrible images. If you want to find John online, he's John Voorhees at macstories.net on Mastodon. JOHNVOORHWES. It's the same on Threads. It's fun. I just know that, right? I just know it from hearing you say it. I know how to say it in your way.
I've been saying it a lot.
VOORHWES.
Yes.
Goodbye, Federico. What do you say?
Talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.
Ciao, John. No, we're not done yet. Federico is Vitici at MacStories.net on Mastodon. He's at Vitici, VITICCI.
Incredible.
I'm Mike, IMYKE. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you to Vanta and Squarespace for the support of this show. We've had a good time in October, but let me tell you, I'm ready for Stephen to be back. No offense, John. No offense, Federico.
No, it's not.
I'm just ready to have him back, right? I've missed him.
Yes,
and I'm looking forward to him being
come back, Daddy.
Daddy, please, Daddy, we missed you. Daddy, come back. He's never coming back. My hope for next week's episode, I'm not going to put this to Stephen directly. And Stephen, if you're listening to this, don't take this as a thing. But if you want to do this, me and Federico just have no idea, and you're just coming back with all the things that you've been wanting to talk about. That is my hope for the episode. It's like Stephen has 3 topics. We don't know what they are, and it's like Stephen's been away for a month and he has things to say. And that's could be my assumption for where he'll be. I was saying to him, I was talking to him, I imagined, I think it was the case, this has been the hardest week, I'm sure, right? Because there's actual Mac stuff to talk about. He nearly got away with it, but we nearly got to the end.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Connected. We'll be back next time. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Arrivederci.
Ciao, Mike.
Oh.